Let's be honest, there's probably tons of different little things you're doing wrong in your games, but these are the 5 big ones that really set you and the pros apart. What's up, ProGuides fam? I'm Kangas, and today we're talking about the top 5 reasons that you might be feeling stuck in your rank. Luckily for you though, most of these things are easily fixable, so hit that sub button and let's get into it. The first and most common reason that I essentially see at all levels of play, even in Global Elite and Face It level 10, is that you throw rounds by overpeaking in man advantages. CSGO is a game that's all about playing your advantages and abusing them. If you look at the pro scene, where this is done to its fullest potential, we see that whenever a team gets an opening kill, they win about 75% of their rounds. Which, if you don't think that's high already, teams like Astralis have an even higher win percentage, going up to almost 80%. All that from a single opening kill. At that point, you can see how big a deal the man advantage really is. Winning 75 or even 80% of your rounds is no joke, and it's a very high win percentage. But it doesn't quite reflect what happened in your own matchmaking and Face It games. The reason for that is because in these ranked games, people overpeak all the time, and rounds are thrown really commonly. You're probably even guilty of this yourself. Let's say it's a 5v3 and you're up a few rounds, so you're feeling confident and decide to hunt for those last few kills. It's a very common thing for people to do, and it's honestly the driving factor of why clutches are so common in matchmaking. In theory, a clutch should be really hard to win, and it should only be winnable if a player manages to dismantle a strong bait setup or a crossfire by hitting some nutty shots. In practice though, most of the time a clutch is won by a single player just winning some consecutive 1 versus 1s, where at first people will quite literally push into them and get killed for free. And then only later, when people realize, oh, wait a minute, this round is losable, they start to play overly scared. Again, giving the player 1v1s, only this time by hiding in random corners, hoping not to get spotted instead of blindly pushing. What should happen instead of this though, is that as soon as the rounds turn into a man advantage, people will avoid solo fights as much as possible and play so there's always a trade. That doesn't mean that as soon as you get that 5 versus 4 opening, everyone should get back to spawn and make sure that there's no way they die, but it does mean that you always want to have a teammate near you watching the angles that you can't, and with the ability to swing on whoever manages to kill you if it does come down to that. Honestly though, playing to keep the advantage can sometimes be a bit difficult and is very situational. So if you want to make sure that you're not making any mistakes, the best way to go about it is to review your demo with a better player like a coach from ProGuides.com. By reviewing your demo with one of the many expert coaches, you can be sure that you're always making the right decisions and you stop throwing games. It's a super effective way of learning, and you should definitely check it out. With that said, that brings us to today's question of the day. Our question is, what are you most proud of in Counter-Strike? Is it your aim, your skin collection, or maybe a nice highlight? Whatever it may be, I'm curious, so let me know in the comments below. The next tip that's probably holding you back is one that we've said a lot, but it's worth repeating. Your crosshair placement isn't as good as you think it is, or maybe you're one of the few that has never heard of this. Crosshair placement is a pretty basic but integral part of Counter-Strike. It's the art of always having your crosshair positioned aiming at the right angle, to make sure that you have to make minimal adjustments and to result in a low time to kill. Basically, to have good crosshair placement, you must always be aiming at head height and at wherever it is most likely the enemy will peek you. It sounds simple enough, right? Just keep your crosshair at headshot level, forehead. But honestly, there's a lot more to it. Actually keeping your crosshair at the right position and doing it consistently and smoothly takes a lot more than just knowing about it. You need to practice your crosshair placement and do so often. Luckily though, practicing is pretty straightforward too. All you need to do is hop into a deathmatch server, track the walls, and pre-aim common angles. And on top of that, you should also spend some time playing the YPrac practice workshop maps for all the most common maps and play the pre-fire mode. Here, you'll be tasked with clearing all the most common angles, and there's even tons of different settings to make it easier or more difficult. Of course, start with the easy settings in order to learn about all the different angles, and then once you feel comfortable with the maps, set the settings to a level where it's challenging but not impossible to clear everything. The goal here is to keep challenging yourself. Another reason why you might not be as good as you'd like is because you simply don't watch back your demos. Watching back your demos is extremely important in everyone's path to improving. It's crucial to finding out about your mistakes, and thus without it, you simply won't even know what to work on. If you've ever felt like you didn't know what kind of mistakes you're making and are always just working on your aim to improve further, you're just doing it wrong. There's tons of different things people need to improve on other than just their aim, and watching back your demos is the easiest way to finding out what that thing is. It's okay to make mistakes, like everyone does, but it's not okay if you don't realize what mistakes you're making. After all, if you don't know what you're doing wrong, there's no way to fix it. That's why watching back your demos regularly and doing so effectively is extremely important. If you want to keep improving and don't want to get stuck after your aim can't carry you past your bad habits, then you need to review your mistakes. Of course, we understand that watching back your demos for the first time can be a bit daunting, and sometimes it's hard to know what you're even looking for. So if that's what you're struggling with, again, you should get together with a coach. If you're unsure how to get value out of watching your demo, or simply don't know what you're doing wrong, looking at it with a more experienced player is really going to help you out. The next thing that might be holding you back though is simply just lack of practice. If you only ever play the game for an hour or two a week, and you don't really ever practice, you can't reasonably expect to make a lot of improvement. If you really want to improve, you're gonna have to invest some time into finding and fixing your mistakes and grinding out your bad habits. You're gonna need to practice your aim, movement, and crosshair placement, and you'll have to go over your decision making. What we'd advise to improve optimally is to have a healthy balance of both practicing and playing. Make sure that not only do you just play matchmaking or face it all day, but you start off with a little warm-up routine, then follow it up with a few more pugs by the end of the day with some aim, movement, and or crosshair placement practice as well. For example, if you have 4 hours one day, you could decide to go for about 10 to 20 minutes of warm-up, followed by 3 games of about 40 to 60 minutes, and then finally ending the day with about an hour of aim practice. The most important things here are that you start the day with warm-up and end it with practice. Of course, if you have a bad day, you could decide not to play and go straight to aim practice, but you never want to aim practice first and then follow it up with ranked games. The reason for that is because aim practice should oftentimes really tire you out. That's kind of the point. So if you were to do it before your ranked games, you'll go into them more tired and thus play worse. The most important thing with improving your mechanics though is that you practice consistently. You don't just want to be practicing your aim once every 2 weeks for hours on end, but rather space that time out and do shorter sessions every single day. That's the best way to improve, and if you're serious about improving, that's what you need to be doing. Finally, the last reason that you might suck is that you're simply lacking confidence. Confidence is an extremely important part of Counter-Strike, and oftentimes it and it alone decides whether you win or lose duels. It might seem really obvious, but being confident in yourself and in your abilities is just crucial. When you think about it, winning duels isn't really all that hard. All you have to do is put your crosshair on the head right, and oftentimes where your opponent is positioned is going to be pretty obvious. The common angles are called common angles for a reason after all, and once you've learned about the map and how it plays, you can honestly just pre-fire most of them. At the end of the day, it doesn't take a whole lot of skills to just crouch, spray, pre-fire an angle, but it is pretty effective. The reason that confidence is so important is because if you don't have it, you really limit yourself, and if you tell yourself you're going to lose an aim duel or a clutch, you're probably going to lose it. Even though you may have had the skills to pull it off, you rendered yourself useless by not believing in yourself. So that's why you gotta work on your confidence. To help with that, there's a few things you can do. Firstly, you can spend more time practicing, which is really effective for most people. If you know you're putting in the hours, you're gonna be more confident about your skills as well. But there's also things in your warm-up that you can do. Your warm-up is not there only to physically warm you up and get your muscles ready, after all you barely use them while playing, but it's also important to feel comfortable and confident. Basically, whenever you're warming up, try to have a focus around doing something that'll give you confidence. For everyone, that's going to be something different, but there's probably something that really boosts your confidence and gets you ready for a game. For me, personally, what I do is play a few minutes of free-for-all deathmatch. That is, until I get a few nice multi-kills, and instantly, I feel like I'm ready to take on the world. That may not be the best way for you, but just experiment and you'll find something that works. Well, I hope all these tips got you feeling confident and ready to farm your ranked games. If they did, make sure to show us some love by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. While you're at it, don't forget to visit our website, ProGuides.com, where you can find top-tier coaching and even get access to the one and only Simple Master course. With that being said, I wish you the great rest of your day and the best of luck grinding. I'll see you next time.